The lesson on soluble and insoluble substances. The topic for this experiment is solubility of substances. A solution is a special mixture that looks and behaves like a single substance. It consists of a liquid and the dissolved substance, which is spread evenly throughout it. The substance that dissolves is called the solute. The substance that does the dissolving is called the solvent. So the solute dissolves in the solvent, forming a solution. A substance that dissolves is said to be soluble. A substance that will not dissolve is insoluble. Some insoluble substances form a cloudy color and settle while left for a while. Such a mixture is not a solution but a suspension. Solutions can also be made by dissolving a liquid in a liquid or a gas in a liquid. The aim of this experiment is that students will learn first to test various substances that are soluble in water, and secondly to investigate the difference between soluble and insoluble substances. The materials that are needed for this experiment: 6 test tubes labeled A to F, test tube racks, rubber stopper to fit the test tubes, measuring cylinder, samples of copper sulfate, salt, sugar, chalk, sand, and stone. Method: place 20 milliliters of water in each test tube that has been labeled A to F. And in test tube A, add a small quantity of copper sulfate, place the rubber stopper on the test tube and shake the test tube gently. Remember not to use a finger or a hand to cover the opening of the test tube, as they may contain something that could be poisonous or may burn your finger or your hand. As you shake the test tube, hold it up to the light to see if it's cloudy, if the light shines through it, and if the liquid is colored or colorless. Allow the test tube to stand in the rack for 5 minutes. Now observe it. Have any of the substances settled to the bottom? Now record whether the substance is soluble or insoluble. If a solution was formed, what color was it, or whether suspension was formed. Now, in test tube B, place 20 milliliters of water and add a small quantity of salt. Place the rubber stopper on the test tube and shake the test tube gently. Hold it up to the light to see if it's cloudy, if the light shines through it, and if the liquid is colored or colorless. Now allow the test tube to stand in the rack for another 5 minutes. Now check again to see if any of the substances has settled to the bottom. Then record whether the substance is soluble or insoluble. If a solution was formed, now the color, and whether a suspension was formed. In test tube C, again place 20 milliliters of water and add a small quantity of sugar. As you've done for the others, place a rubber stopper on the test tube and shake the test tube gently. After you've shaken, hold it up to the light to see if it's cloudy, if the light shines through it, and if the liquid is colored or colorless. Now leave it for a while on the rack to see if any of the substances has formed at the bottom. Then, as you've done for the first two, record the substance to see if the substance is soluble or insoluble. If a solution was formed, write down the color as well and whether a suspension was formed. Now test tube D. Add water as we've done before and then add chalk powder. Place the rubber stopper on the test tube and shake the test tube gently. And again hold it up to the light, and if the light shines through it or if the liquid is colored or colorless, leave the test tube on the rack for some time to see if the substance has settled to the bottom. Now record whatever you have noticed. Test tube E. For this test tube, also place 20 ml of water and add a small quantity of sand. As you've done for the others, shake the test tube, hold it up to the light to see if it's cloudy, see if the light shines through it or if the liquid is colored or colorless. And then allow it to stand for a while on the rack. Have any of the substances settled to the bottom? Now record whether the substance is soluble or insoluble, what color it has, what color it was, or whether a suspension was formed. The last test tube F, again add 20 ml of water and add 1 or 2 small pieces of gravel. Place the rubber stopper again on the test tube and shake the test tube gently. After shaking, hold it up to the light to see if it's cloudy, to see if the light shines through it and if the light is colored or colorless. Let the test tube Stand in the rack for about 5 minutes. Record what you notice. If a solution was formed, what color it was, or whether a suspension was formed. In this experiment, the substances that dissolved are copper sulfate, salt and sugar. These substances are said to be soluble in water. Whereas chalk, sand and stone did not dissolve, so these are insoluble in water. However, when the chalk was mixed in water, it formed a suspension where the solids settle at the bottom of the test tube. In this experiment, we have learned that only certain substances are soluble in water, such as sugar, salt and copper sulfate, and some are insoluble. Substances that dissolve in a solvent are called soluble substances, and substances that do not dissolve are called insoluble substances.